of battling siblings. Here they come. Tableau. Other dancers enter. Tableau. The loving relationship. Romantic. Tableau. They all look at the protagonist. They form a circle. They invite the protagonist into their cycle of love. Each one in succession embraces her, kisses her, welcomes her. They gather around. Think of a flower closing in. It opens up. They then lift her. They cross the stage. They bring her down. And then they all embrace her as she realizes that in order to love others, she has to love herself. Can you do this? Yes. Yes, you can. Maybe not to this extent. You're in Nashville. You have songwriters, you have composers. You have Bill Hyman from Arkansas. That's the beauty of the internet. You can send them a narrative or have your kids create lyrics. If you get this book on Amazon, my book, if you get this book on Amazon, it shows you how to take a metaphor and spin it into a lyric, then send it to a composer, and then put it in your fall concert. Why not? Okay? Something else I wanted to mention that I overlooked. When I was talking about the difference between teaching and instruction, I had a picture of this guy in a one step above a tent, right? You had this guy who obviously doesn't have much to teach with. When I was doing creating original opera for teachers around the world, we had 3 levels of training. The first, you came in for 8 days. You learned how to have kids start with a blank piece of paper, which they wrote, composed, designed, managed, built, rehearsed, and performed their own original music theater piece, and the teacher had to sit out front. You weren't allowed backstage. If they hit a train wreck, they hit a train wreck and they had to fix it. All of that is in that book as well, every step of that process. And one of these teachers, and you'd come back for year 2, you come back for year 3. One teacher was teaching in Mali, which is an African country next to the Sudan. And when she told me what she did in her project between year 1 and 2, she said in her school they had no air conditioning at 100 degrees. There was one electrical outlet in the entire building. And one of the aspects of this training program was teaching kids how to build and use their own electrical equipment from scratch. And I said, why'd you do this? I mean, this is a really intense, complicated project. And she said, because the kids learned best through what they created. The kids learned best through what they created. The educational world, some of the people in the educational establishment seem to want to make the comprehensibles complex. I'm trying to turn this around. I want to start from a comprehensible approach to Common Core. I'm sure you're going to find lots and lots of books and materials about Common Core that get increasingly complex. I want to give you a simple way to approach this. Let's look at visual art. Teachers, where are you? Okay, good. This is for you. How do you teach narrative with a visual piece of art? You start with, well, let's go to the standard first. Standards-based education starts with a standard. It does not start with content. You don't say, here's the content I want to teach. Here's the painting I want to teach. You start with a standard, and then look for the content that's appropriate. So here, for grade 5, this is from my rewrite of the standards. And down there on 1A, orient the audience with a clear expository section that provides the listener or viewer with necessary information. Use dialogue, visual design, blah, blah, blah. Provide visual elements, costume, setting, and so forth. And then for grade 9, 10, there's that create narrative again. Here's a piece of genre art. You know what genre art is? It's art that depicts everyday life. Let's take this one. You familiar with this? Edward Hopper's Nighthawks. One of the things about Common Core, they want kids to use technology to do research. All right, so look up Edward Hopper and look at the provenance of this painting. Find out when it was painted, where he painted it. So to create a narrative, well, back up. You can have the kids analyze the structure of this painting. Shape, form, color, perspective, blah, 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 all those things. Now we talk about the structure of narrative. What do you have to have in order to have a story? What element do you have to have? Characters. Oh my God. Are there characters there? Oh, how many? 4. What else do you need? She said characters. What else do you need? Huh? Not before plot. Setting. Right? Kids always say place. No, time and place. Is this set in 2013? No. How do you know that? How do you know?
The quality of how they're dressed.
Which is? Quality of how they're dressed, he said.
Well, it looks like they're more around the 30s, 40s.
Why?
Because the style that they would wear when they're out in society to portray who they are and what they think.
And also the key thing is men don't wear hats anymore.
Right.
Right? Back in the 30s and 40s, any self-respecting man would not be seen without a hat. Is there can you infer a relationship? Who? The couple. What time of day is this? Probably pretty late, like 2 or 3 in the morning. Why? There's no lights on in the windows, as well as nobody on the street. But back in 1940, if you're a young woman at 3 o'clock in the morning wearing a red dress, we can infer what your line of work is. I can do this with high school, not 5th grade. Can we develop a story from this? What about that guy sitting off by himself? Who's he? Who's he? Make it up. Who is he? Make it up. Because I'm not asking you what you know. I'm asking you, what do you think? Huh? He's, all right, fine. He's the pimp. Fine. Because the purpose of this exercise is not to come up with a masterpiece narrative. The point is, how do you use structural elements to create one? Not just know what they are, but to actually use them. And you can create a story from this. You know, what is it? Noir novel. So, by asking those questions, your answers create content. We're discovering content rather than me delivering it to you. Classroom teachers, where are you? Okay, let's take one for you. This is an actual writing standard, grade 4, from the ELA Anchor Standards. This is specific to grade 4. Write narratives, we already know that. Establish a situation, organize an event sequence that unfold naturally, develop experiences and events to show response to character situations. Got it? Okay. Now, according to her, we need characters. When I do this in an in-depth workshop, I ask the participants, Give me 12 people who inhabit your world. So if we're talking about business people, you have a CEO, you have a secretary, you have a client, you have an auditor, whatever. If you're talking about a theater company, you've got a director, you've got an actor, you've got a critic, you've got public relations officer, whatever. In the interest of time, I have listed, Sourdough Starter. Collaborate to produce a narrative. The expanded Sourdough Starter. In order to complete this activity, participants will collaborate with each other to produce a narrative from random elements, components. They will include imagined, appropriate, and coherent event sequences in order to demonstrate understanding of narrative structure. That's what you are going to do. So, here are your characters from your world, the educational world. You find these people, right? So, let's find out who our two characters are. Ready? Character A is number 4, board member. Remember this. Character B, counselor. Got it? Board member, counselor. Now we need a setting. These are places in your world, right? Well, let's find out where they are. Kids hangout. Counselor and board member at a kids hangout. Let's find out when. Noon. You wanted midnight, didn't you? Okay. So it's noon, board member, counselor at a kids hangout. Now, one of the things in having kids just create stories and narratives that we routinely think about when we write scripts is props. There are things that quite often are very important to a plot. So let's find out what the thing is. You have laptop, newspaper, document, cell phone, report, card. It's supposed to say report card, and check. Ready? What is it? 3. Document. Board member, counselor, kids hangout at noon with a document. Let's find out what the emotion is. Because emotion catalyzes motivation. Motivation drives behavior. So we have to have an emotion. Joy. Now, keep in mind, if I was to do this again, we'd end up with totally different random elements, wouldn't we? So we have a counselor, we have a board member. At noon, kids hang out with a document, and somebody feels joy. As I said earlier, by asking the questions, we create the content. When I do this with kids, I say, I don't want to know what you know. I want to know what you think. You can't say, I don't know, because you can think. Why are they there?
They're surveying a new site.
For what?
A new office.
Okay, they're surveying a site from a new office. We are collaborating. We are building on the ideas of others. That's right out of the standards. Got that? We're checking out a site for a new office. Is the time, noon, a factor? Why not?
Over dinner or lunch.
Okay, let's do it over lunch. Yeah. All right? So they're having lunch in the kids' hangout. Because we got to think about that kids' hangout thing. Got to deal with that. Do they know each other already? What do you think? Okay, they know each other. How long have they known each other? A year. All right? Are they on first name basis? Sure. Okay, they're on first name basis. Whose prop is it? Whose document is it? And what is the significance of that document? The board member's document. What is it? Who does? Ah, the board member owns the building. Ah, there's something in it for the board member. Now we could take this in some interesting directions, couldn't we? Who's feeling joy? Yeah, I'm asking you. The board member. So there could be some hanky-panky in this, couldn't there? There could be some underlying, that's not, that didn't go out for bid, those kinds of things. All we're doing is creating content in order to develop a narrative so kids understand how these elements work together. Generally speaking, with the lower grades, I don't care what they come up with. With the upper grades, I want it to be believable. And I say, I don't buy that. Come up with something else. You can also use it to teach novels. I've done it with Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men was in the reading curriculum when I was in the 7th grade. It's still there. So you could come up with 12 characters, Slim, Crook, George, Lenny, Curly, Curly's wife. Then you could make up a couple. I think there's Lenny's aunt, Clara, I think her name is. You put her in. She's only mentioned, but you can make it up. You can make up a police officer. And then you have, where are these various places? The bunkhouse, Curly's house, the field. There's all kinds of places. The ditch, okay? You can have the props. Obviously, that newspaper ad for the house on 5 acres of land. You could also have a police warrant, because they were fleeing one other place before they came to the setting of the novel. You can come up with your joy and so forth, and you can do it as a check for understanding with your kids. Because if they say something, you can say, let's set this 5 years before the novel starts. And then whatever they tell you, you can say, George wouldn't do that because of what George did in the book. You can also use it as a precursor, forget what they call it, inciting event, I think they call it in lesson plan language, inciting incident or whatever. And don't give these people names, just have them make up the story, then read the book and see how Steinbeck did it. Compare and contrast. And then ask them, compare and contrast what you did with what Steinbeck did. All right. When I was doing creating original opera, having kids write works that they subsequently performed, this is a question I was often asked. How does creating original stories contribute to a student's overall academic competency and preparation for life? Here was my answer. Being able to create an original story begins to dissolve the rust of imagination's inactivity frozen by rote learning. Without an active imagination, students might develop either as marionettes incapable of independent action or become mindless primates driven solely by instinct or emotional response. How many times have you seen kids do things because they saw somebody else do it? How many times have you seen kids instantly react without thinking? Happens all the time. So in creating original stories, I want them to be able to start thinking, why do people do what they do? Why do you do what you do? And think about it. For me, I came across this definition of learning, which I really, really like. A change in behavior as a result of experience, not as a result of what you can remember, but of the experiences you go through. So, let's get down to brass tacks. You get it? Or, as Madeline Kahn would say,
come on, Mama, let's get down to brass tacks. What do you want me to do?
What do I want you to do? Blazing Saddles. It's a great film. All right. Using your existing curriculum content, could you ask your students to analyze a piece of music, a set of lyrics, or a painting? Couldn't you do that? In Georgia, one of the things I did in Atlanta is I took Amazing Grace. Now that's a cliche. We played it at every firefighter's and cop's funeral. And I said, have the kids analyze the text. Let's start with Amazing Grace. What is grace? What's it refer to? What does Amazing Grace refer to? What's grace?
Unmerited favor.
Huh? That's one interpretation. What's the one you have? What is grace? When it says Amazing Grace, what is the writer referring to? Do you think? She's going, oh my God, I'm on the spot. God. And you use the term amazing. It's not everyday run-of-the-mill grace. It's amazing grace. And what's amazing about it? The idea that this piece of music, these words, can provide you with comfort in a period of grief. So you ask the kids, when you sing Amazing Grace, think of a time in your life where you needed emotional support and sing it like that. Or put yourself in an imaginary circumstance, a setting where you would need to sing it. Music people, how many times do you see kids in chorus singing with nothing going on their face? That's because nothing's going on behind their eyes. So you have to get them, they're not human flutes. You want them to sing the text with meaning. What do the words mean? Not just what do they say. Could you have kids create a piece of music or visual art? Of course you could. In Atlanta again, and in Chicago, I worked with a group of music teachers, and I said, you've got 45 minutes. Well, first, they came the next morning. I said, bring your instruments. If you're a choral teacher, bring your voice. We're going to create some music. And they came, and they had clarinet and violin and a couple of other instruments. And I said, you got 45 minutes to compose and perform the Common Core State Standards Blues. And they did. And it's on the Atlanta Public Schools website. And they performed it for the rest of their colleagues. And we used found instruments like carpet tubes, as well as the instruments they brought. You can get your kids to create music. If they create it, they don't need to notate it. They created it, so they already know it. So if you just want to take rhythm, how many of you are familiar with Godspell? There's a rhythm sequence in there in the barnyard. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chick, chick, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chick, chick, matched with dang, a dang, 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 diddly, dang, a dang, dang. So you can have kids create rhythms. Say to a kid, lay down a rhythm. They do it. Match it with something else. Put it together. Structure it, beginning, middle, end. Perform it. Perform it in your concert. Can you have kids make a presentation about some aspect of music or visual art? Yes. You know what would be cool? Have them do a presentation on the music they listen to. Whether it's Ricky Skaggs or Jay-Z or Rihanna or Catherine Mattea, doesn't make any difference. Years ago when I was teaching opera in New York City, I was talking about opera with a whole group of high school students in East Harlem. And the windows were open. It was late spring. It was really hot. And this mobile boombox went by. So I had to stop talking. And then when they finished, when they went down the street, I said to the kids, oh, Boogie Down Productions. And those kids sat up and go, you know that? Yeah. Because at the beginning of the year, I would buy recordings of what they were listening to, and I would listen to them and analyze their music. And I got respect, because I knew what they were listening to. You ought to try that with a group of parents sometime. Have them listen to the music their kids are listening to. what you're going to do, holy crap. Oh, good. Well, okay. What you're going to do, this went longer than I thought. You're going to create a sourdough starter. You're going to have a relevant artwork. And you're going to say why you selected that particular work. The why is really important. There's an exercise called the 5 levels of why. I don't claim ownership. It was developed by a company called IDEO, I-D-E-O. They worked with Steve Jobs to design most of the Apple products. They have a little book, a little box of flashcards, which are catalysts for creative ideas. And it's 5 levels of why. The reason that I'm going to do this with you is because I want you to avoid the trap of the self-evident good syndrome. The arts are good for kids. Enough said. No, it's not good enough. We have to know why. So, I'm going to ask some of you, a couple of you, for an example of an artwork that you use in your curriculum. And we're going to go through the 5 levels of why. Not 5 separate reasons of why, but when I ask you why, you're going to give me an answer, and I'm going to say, why did you say that? So, for music, Ginger Cunningham, are you here? Hi, Ginger, how are you? All right. She's going, oh my God, what is he going to do? All right, here we go, Ginger. Do you have a piece of, are you a choral teacher? Or,
music, kindergarten, preschool.
okay, general music, she said. So you have them sing songs?
Yes.
Good. Give me an example. What do you have them sing? This is telling me I have 15 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, we did a spring concert, and we picked music from the Beatles to go
Which
with,
one?
Well, okay. Octopus Garden.
Octopus Garden. Why?
It went with the book that we were using for them to dramatize Rainbow Fish.
Okay. Why Rainbow Fish?
Well, it was in their literature that they were
Stop.
familiar
Why was it in their literature? What is this? Shut up. All right. Fine. Shut up. All right, go. Why?
Well, the teachers read it to them all the time.
Why?
Because
Why?
the book talks about character themes.
Ah, we're into the 4th why. We're talking about character development.
Right.
That's the reason to teach it, isn't it?
Yes.
And you have to connect character, which means you have to define what does character mean? And what is the, I don't need your answer.
Thank you.
And then you have to say, what is the difference between a character in a play and having character? And then you read the book, and then you sing the song with that intention. To do it intentionally, not by accident. Say, you know this book? Cool. You know what the Beatles did? The Beatles did this song. Relate it, integrate it together. That's the reason. So now we're going to pick out a visual art person. Carol McCall Price. Where are you? Hello. You're way over there. Okay. As I come over, Carol, I want you to tell me, where are you, Carol? Hi. I want you to tell me what piece of visual art, whether it's sculpture or painting or collage, I don't care what it is, that you use in your curriculum content.
What piece of visual art?
Yeah.
Clay head. Clay head.
Clay head. They make it? Okay. Why?
Because it's a good example of learning all of the elements and principles of art. And
Why? Why are the principles of art important?
because that's how art's put together. That's
Why?
the language of art.
Ah, why teach them the language of art? So they can walk out the door with it.
Well, it teaches them how to be creative,